Can an event boost your magazine's bottom line? Peter Johns knows it can. This is Making Money from Magazines.
So today we're here with Peter Johns, who is the publisher at WW Magazines. Hi Peter, how you doing?
I'm good and hope you are too.
So tell us what WW stands for in WW Magazines then, just so that everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, Waterways, the company was founded on a magazine called Waterways World. Been around for 52 years, yeah, correct. The company started in 1996, span out of an old company, and we then started to add titles in completely different areas. So Waterways World Limited wasn't quite right. So we went with WW Magazines.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a more kind of overarching, isn't it? And today we're going to talk about the 5 evolutions of profitable events, focusing on your boat show. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the boat show, maybe just kind of how you took on the brand and how you got started?
In around 2010, I was aware that the existing main boat show in the country, known as the Crick Boat Show, at that point, the show was owned and organised by British Waterways, who were the navigation authority for the canals and some of the rivers. They were not sure what to do with the show. Wasn't core to what they did, was losing them money. But by that point, we had successfully run a number of indoor shows associated with our other magazines. We had some motoring titles, and we had a magazine called Self-Build Design for people who want to build their own homes. So we got some show experience from that. I approached them and said, look, I know the inland waterways market backwards because we published the leading title in the sector, and we know how to run live events. So can we have a go at it? Long discussions, and they said, yeah, okay, but needs to be on a management basis. We'll pay you a guaranteed fee and share profits after that. We said yes. We did that for a couple of years, and I then got to the point where I said, look, I cannot go through these endless meetings with you each year. I'd sooner just get on and run it. Can we take it on at our entire commercial risk? And you sort of leave us to it, and we'll simply pay you a royalty on any earnings over certain thresholds. And we were away from that point onwards.
Brilliant. What a great business model. And presumably it's got their backing then as well, and their branding on it as well, does it?
They became a charity, the Canal and River Trust, and their help support is pretty essential to running a successful show.
So tell me, what did you keep then, and what did you lose from the original proposal when you took it on?
What we did is immediately try and take it back to its core, which is a boat show. Prior to that, there'd been all sorts of peripheral stuff with firework displays and paratroopers coming in and all sorts of stuff that was not core. So we said, look, it's a boat show. Let's focus on the core market. And crucially, let's focus on the exhibitors and making their life easy, because the previous organisers had this sort of philosophy of, we sold you the space, there's the space, get on, sort it out. And it was a nightmare. So we did everything we could to make an exhibitor's life really easy on setup and breakdown, built that relationship, focused on the boat show. Of course, because we got Waterways World, we could deliver a fantastic audience for the exhibitors, and really started to create some momentum from there.
That's interesting what you did with the exhibitors. Can you tell us a little bit about how you took care of them? I mean, from my own perspective, I run events myself, and we have exhibitors at our conference, and I'm always trying to make them feel welcome and looked after. But there's things that I'm sure I could be doing better. So tell us what you do.
Some of it is perhaps slightly unique to the site. The site is partly on a marina, Crick Marina. But also utilises some fields that we rent from a local farmer next to it. The marina site is pretty tight and pretty difficult to manoeuvre around. And what tended to happen is the exhibitors all turned up at the same time.
Of course.
You've got these massive log jams. Everybody was arguing and saying, look, if I could just set up now, it'll only take me 5 minutes, then everybody else will be able to set up. And of course, they then take an hour and it all goes to chaos. So we tried to stagger their arrival, just hold them until something would clear, and just generally help them get to their pitch at the right time, and also crucially listen to them all the time. If they've got any problems, solve them quickly, and just deliver something that operationally is smooth for them. And over time, we've sort of, this sounds a bit condescending, but educated them so they now repay that. And we'll get a lot of people who say, can I bring my unit and set up 3 days early? And we said, yeah, that's fantastic, because you've got one in and out of the way.
Yeah.
And that has just sort of mushroomed and got to the point where they almost organised themselves.
Brilliant. That's the dream, huh? So why do you think you should evolve an event then? What's the importance of that?
The thing with a live event, you can't stand still. You've got to keep moving it forward, because it gets tired and stale. The challenge with that, though, is if you've got a successful event, well, why would you want to change a winning formula? So it is definitely evolution and not revolution. And some of those changes have to be relatively subtle. So, for example, when we inherited it, there was music entertainment in a real ale marquee in the evenings, but the marquee was greatly overspecified. So we could do away with the flooring and make it more like a festival, which sounds like a negative step, but it meant we could then invest some of that money in slightly better music acts. And we then finished up booking a tribute band called Fleetwood Mac. You might be able to work out who they were a tribute to.
They sound amazing.
Yeah. And that experience was astonishing. The place was absolutely packed.
Brilliant.
The band came on, absolutely rocking. We thought, hey, we've got something here.
Yeah.
And since then, we've gone to town with the music festival. It has become an essential point, which sort of runs counter to what I said about going back to the core of what the event is, a boat show. But in fact, it's more, we got the boat show, the boat element right, and then it was a case of, we've got all of this infrastructure, how can we make the most of it? And started to encourage exhibitors to camp or stay on the boats on site, and then you want to give them something back. So you've got the evening entertainment, and from there you start to build up more campers, more boats mooring locally. So you start to build up the festival atmosphere, but get the core of it right first.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to go back to basics before you know what you can change, huh? It's otherwise you're just kind of, you don't know what to test first. So is there anything that you wish you'd done differently when you first took over the brand?
Well, I think you always make mistakes as you go, and I think it's always a learning process. I think if I'm honest, we got by the skin of our teeth on that first year. Although we'd run live events, we'd not run an outdoor event. So I think on the very first morning we opened, we'd not fenced off an area, and I suddenly found visitors pouring in there rather than through the pay gates. But yes, we learned. Maybe we should have been slightly better prepared, but we learned the hard way, and away we went.
So is there anything else, or was that, I mean, they feel quite kind of operational. Is there anything else that went wrong, or was it okay?
One decision that we made the first year was to retain all of the suppliers and contractors to the show. There was one that we had to bring in fresh because we hadn't got a caterer that we could inherit. But one of the suppliers that we inherited, what they did worked, but they were a nightmare to work with. And I found out subsequently that there was a connection to the previous organisers from whom we had effectively taken away the management of the show. So I could sort of see why they were a bit grumpy and unhelpful. But that was a fairly minor point, I think, in the end.
So is there anything you recommend about working with suppliers in general then when it comes to your events?
Yeah, I think we've generally had most of the same suppliers. We get great continuity. I'd say that don't judge it entirely on cost. The quality of the service you get is really, really important. Because we've worked with so many of them for so long, they tend to be able to look after themselves and in some respects, know the show better than you. by working closely with them, you understand that we can actually keep our costs down. For example, some of our exhibitors need an electric supply. Don't dot those locations all over the showground, making it harder to run cables. See if you can group them in certain areas. Then it makes the electrician's job a lot easier, and it reduces our costs a little bit for only a small effort. So working with your suppliers means that you can improve the show and actually make it run a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's absolutely something to be said for just spending more time with people, and getting to know people and getting to know the way that they work, and for them vice versa with you, right? I mean, the better you know people, the more slick things will be, So, I mean, you talked briefly about your music festival and the Real Ale Festival, or it sounds like those are kind of one and the same. What have you found that's brought to your sponsorship for the event, and how's that affected your exhibitors? How does that all work together?
It's quite complex. Sometimes when I look at if I look purely at the financials of that in isolation and look at the cost of the marquee and hiring the bands, and we have a stage manager who books the events and looks after them and so on, I look at that and think probably washes its face. But what it does do is create this festival atmosphere, and that's part and parcel of looking after the exhibitors. It's part and parcel of getting more campers on site, more people, more in the boats, more people booking weekend tickets. So it's difficult to measure it directly, but it rounds out the event. And rather than be something that's very sterile, sort of opens at 10, closes at 6, see you tomorrow, it extends the event into the evening and creates a sort of community.
Yeah, because people who come to a boat show aren't only interested in boats, they're interested in speaking to other boat owners and to spend time with them and to be part of that community. So, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the boat show has got a kind of more of a kind of conferencey side as well. Is that right? Can you tell us a bit about that and what's come from that throughout the wider business?
Yeah, and it's another good example of how you develop the show. That we've always had a seminar program, mainly delivered by our own technical editor because he's a professional speaker, but we've then looked to see how we can extend that. So we added a masterclass theatre, which is on more technical subjects, and the slots are taken by our exhibitors, so it gives them another opportunity to promote what they do and their brand. And then of late we've started to add one or two other what we call special sessions. So one of our sponsors has an hour slot where they talk to a couple of YouTubers who they're close with and just talk about how they like life on the water and so on. So that's great. And I've done a couple of sessions jointly with the chief exec of Canal and River Trust, where we've looked at the challenges and the future of the inland waterways. And so we've gradually sort of evolved that program. But having said that, the core bit of the seminar program that our own technical editor delivers is massively successful. We'll get a couple of hundred people sitting in each of his sessions on how to buy a boat, how to look after your boat, issues on living aboard. And then beyond that, a new introduction this year was to add, we have a trade and preview day. So it's a 4-day show, and the first day is trade and preview day, quieter day. And we introduced then an intensive 1-day course for people who were thinking about living aboard their boat, charged a premium price for it and put lots of add-ins to it. So it became a brand extension and generated more profit because all the infrastructure's there, the marquee's there, the AV equipment's there. Mark Langley, our technical editor, is there delivering pretty much the same content. So we just asked people for a load more money and away we went. It sounds simple, but
but it's a real sweet spot though, isn't it? It's the point where you go, okay, well, that fits really nicely with every part of the show, but doesn't take up more energy and brings in revenue. And have you started to use those as spin-offs after the show as well, or how's that?
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, we're now looking at, because that formula, those intensive 1-day courses work so well, we're about to roll those out as standalone events at different times of the year elsewhere in the country. But the boat show was a fantastic testing ground because you got the kit there. If it hadn't worked, it wouldn't really have mattered if nobody had booked. But as it was, it sold out in a matter of a couple of weeks. So we know we're onto a winner.
The Making Money from Magazines podcast is made by Crowdfinder Video with graphics by White Light Media.
Talking a little bit about the wider business then, how does the magazine integrate with the boat show? Because, I mean, we're all magazine publishers that are watching this, and I think, people often think about events that have to be like really aligned with their brand or that are completely different to their brand. But, the magazine's always going to have to promote them. So how do you do that in your magazine?
How we're trying to see the business now is that we're about audience and reach, and a bit agnostic in terms of how we deliver that subject knowledge. So some people are still very happy with print magazines and would never have anything. Others want digital, others want live events. So certain aspects lend themselves better to one or more of those sort of delivery mechanisms. And of course there's overlap. So the magazine will always carry a boat test, but it's one boat that you can read about for 1 month. If you go to the boat show, you can see 40 new boats all in one location. So they're sort of, the audience is the same, although it's subdivided and different people want to consume that knowledge and expertise in different ways. So you just look for different delivery mechanisms effectively.
Highly complementary though, huh? Right, the two together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as you said, when we first started talking about how when you first started the boat show, how you had that audience already, you couldn't have done the boat show without that, really, could you? So that the magazine was definitely, the crux of that audience.
I think it would be very, very difficult to launch something that is totally off in a different market. You have to have that reach to be able to deliver the audience.
So when you first took on the boat show, presumably things were a bit different when it came to marketing the event. How have things evolved over that time period to now? And what were you doing then? What are you doing now? What have you kept? What have you not?
In the early days, so 2011 was our first boat show. Print was pretty essential, not just the magazine and our ancillary magazines, but also we used to print a ridiculous number of A5 flyers that would be inserted in every publication we had and would go out to around the canal system to boatyards and so on. I think we were probably printing well in excess of 250,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
Maybe it was more than that. And posters and all of that. Yes, digital was starting to happen, but now we've pretty much abandoned the flyers and digital becomes absolutely core. Building a mailing list. Our email database list now is approaching 30,000 names, which is more contacts than we ever had as magazine buyers, even in the heyday. And social media becomes crucial. So some of that is organic, some of it's direct, but some of it's paid search and paid social media posting.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? How what's important to you? Is data capture really important to you, and how are you moving that on? How have things evolved?
The data capture is massively important, and you're playing with that constantly. And in fact, I would say on all marketing, one of my mantras on marketing is try lots of different things. Whatever you do, measure and test them, and those that work, do them again. Those that don't work, don't do them again. Kind of obvious, but people tend to forget that. Don't be afraid to try new things. We used to spend a lot of money on Google search for shows and on Facebook for subscription promotion for magazines. We did it across the board. Gradually, we learned that Google search worked really well for magazine subscriptions, much less well for live events. And Facebook in particular for our audience is completely the reverse.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I sort of get there's a logic there that a live event is more about community and Facebook is more about community, whereas you're probably not searching for a boat show, you're searching for some specific knowledge, which will tend to mean magazine or website. So I see the logic behind that.
Mm. And when you say Facebook, do you mean specifically Facebook, or do you mean Meta and therefore Instagram as well? Or are you just using Facebook? Are you using any other platforms, LinkedIn or Pinterest or anything like that?
Yeah, Instagram, yes. Twitter in the past, but I think like many people, we're sort of falling out of love with that. I think for our demographic, Facebook is absolutely crucial. Obviously, for a younger audience, Instagram is. LinkedIn a little bit, but only in terms of talking to exhibitors, because it's a professional B2B network. But wearing a different hat with an organisation I'm involved in, there LinkedIn is absolutely crucial because it's a B2B members network, and I would just ignore Facebook. So it's what it comes down to, like all marketing, is think about your audience and the best way of reaching them. Marketing is not rocket science. It's just, test things, see what works, think about your audience, and most of the time you should get it right. Sometimes you don't, but you just learn from experience and just keep trying new things.
And do you use video a lot? Are you using video on Facebook, or have you considered TikTok and things like that? I suppose I'm thinking about your audience and how it's I picture it as quite a middle-aged audience, or quite family friendly. Would that be correct?
The people who get into boating tend to be 50 plus, probably 55 plus, and a typical that audience is pretty much Facebook audience. But that will change, and yeah, we do try to change all the time. Video, yes, is becoming important. We're trying to get to terms with YouTube and its importance, because I see that as a social media channel. There are a good number of well-known YouTubers in the waterways market who film a lot at Crick and post a lot on it, and they've got large numbers of subscribers. It's all done without our real involvement. We're trying to work out how we could be involved with that, but I worry slightly that you'd lose the organic nature of that.
And quite nice that they're already advertising it for you without you even asking them, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes I have a slight dilemma. It's our intellectual property and they're now making money out of it. But if we get in the publicity, yeah, no, great. I think the one sort of other concern I have is the nature of the YouTubers. Some of them are brilliant and some of them are not so good. We worked a little with one I've sort of tried to help out this year, who portrayed a terrible image of boating, and I really don't want to have to deal with again. Yet suddenly, a week or so after the show, spotted somebody's YouTube. This lady had come to the show. She paid for a camping, paid for a ticket. Her YouTube program video of the show captured the spirit of it absolutely brilliantly. So I think now we will reach out to her and say, tell you what, come back next year and you can have a free camping pitch. And
and make her feel really welcome and really looked after, huh? Yeah, that's nice. You're saying that you have a lot of exhibitors. How many exhibitors do you have usually, roughly?
220, 230 at the moment.
So that smashes my 10 or 12 out of the park, right? So how far in advance do you plan? Like, are you now looking at the event for next year or further afield, or how are you feeling there?
I would always say you've got to have probably a 3-year plan. Always have a 3-year plan when you start, and then it just rolls forward because, for many different reasons, if you do introduce a new feature, and the trade preview day is a classic example, that it takes time for people to accept change.
Yeah.
So you've got to build that over time. The masterclass theatre we introduced was similar. They didn't really get it at first. We gradually changed it. The music festival, it was a big decision to back in 2014. We after the success of Fleetwood Mac as a tribute band, we said, okay, let's push the boat out, and we booked Toya Wilcox. What a fabulous event. It pushed the budget, but then the music festival had become massively a massive part of the the show. So you're always looking, you introduce something, if it doesn't work the first year perfectly, well, don't worry too much. Think, how's it going to evolve? And almost expect it not to perform to the full extent of the first year. Another small example about trying to build that community spirit. One of the team said, well, why don't we run a pie and mash evening in our VIP marquee? So
I
this year,
love that, in the VIP marquee.
Exactly. Yeah. And it sold out really, really quickly. We ummed and ahed about putting on a second evening, and we said, look, no, let's just cash our chips in there, so to speak, or cash our mash in, whatever. And but next year we probably will run 2 evenings. Even then, we've learned some lessons. We tried to do a single sitting. That was a terrible idea. Whoever thought of that? So you do a couple of sittings, but trying to do single sittings for 2 nights would really have pushed us. But so we've learned, and now I think we can build on that for a second year. And so we've got another little income generator, and we've also built that community spirit.
Lovely, and presumably all sponsored as well. Would that be the case?
Well, the pie and mash is not sponsored, but that's an interesting idea. I'll
find a local
try
farmer
and
to
hold on
supply
to that
potato.
one. Yeah.
How did you sit down with your team and talk about it, and what was the strategy behind it?
Well, I'm not sure there was any great strategy behind it, beyond somebody, my marketing manager, saying, why don't we try this? And you look at something like that, and the bigger the question, the bigger the risk. You spend a little bit more time evaluating it, but the risk there was a bit of our time in promoting it to see if we could get enough takers. If you got enough takers, well, everybody was booking it in advance, so you could book your suppliers in advance, and away you go. The risk was, there was no financial risk other than somebody's time.
And I guess you got the space already, haven't you, for that? So, and then you book the caterers after you've sold the tickets. Yeah, that's smart.
Well, no, it's our existing caterers. They're on site doing that sort of thing anyway. So it's just we'll phone them up and say, that pie and mash evening that we talked about, we've got 100 people booked for it. So when do you need the list of the 3 different types of pies?
How far in advance do you need to buy the sausages?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Exactly, yeah.
It's fun though, huh? Because you're learning all these different parts to not just to running an event, but to running multiple kinds of events and multiple kinds of businesses. Like you are now restaurateurs, festival organisers, boat show organisers, magazine publishers.
You learn so many skills. I know a reasonable amount now about traffic management or security, and what the challenges are and what the issues are. And it means you finish up though sort of stepping in and sorting out problems that actually somebody else should be sorting out, but you've got the continuity, you understand it. It's quite good fun.
So Peter, thank you. We've covered a lot today, but I think it's just to kind of go over it then. So the evolutionary nature of events in themselves. So you've gone from the evolution of print to live. You've gone from the evolution of activities for engagement with sponsors and with your audience. You've gone for the evolution of your marketing, going from print focus to that data capture focus. You've gone for the evolution of the event itself, obviously, tweaks to keep it fresh. I think when we met before and we discussed this, you talked about the importance of that around your marketing team as well. Do you want to just touch on that?
That's a really good point. The marketing team, if they've got to keep churning out the same message, that gets boring, and I think it can make it stale for them, understandably. So to have fresh features for them energizes them, makes the messaging fresher. So it's almost a case of, even if the idea isn't brilliant and doesn't appeal to a lot of people, by energizing your team and giving yourself something fresh to talk about, gives a lift that's a little bit wider than the actual direct impact.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. It's hard to market the same thing, especially if you've got similar branding to the previous year. And, all you can do is kind of focus on the little elements that have changed. But if you've got something big that's new, it's much more exciting for people. So yeah, I feel that. And then finally, the 5th point was the evolution to the wider business, using spin-offs from the event in your more normal day-to-day business. Is there anything else that you think that you would like our viewers to come away with after this? What's the one thing that you think people should really think about?
Definitely have a 3-year plan. Always think in terms of 3 years for a live event. If you're launching, expect to lose money in the first year. If you don't, that's a bonus. And because there will be investment, certainly to establish a new event, you're going to have to spend big on marketing. Once you've delivered an audience, the exhibitors, and you've delivered the exhibitors, it will start to roll. But then also on a smaller level, we talked about the music festival. There was a leap of faith in booking Toya Wilcox as a name, although it was not such a big leap as launching something completely brand new. But it was still a view that let's take that gamble, and if it pays off, we know that we can make the music and the real ale a bigger element of the show. So you're always looking at that sort of 3-year window. Similar with the trade and preview day. We got a lot of resistance the first year. By the third, fourth year, that had disappeared, and we were then adding sponsorship to that day as well.
I mean, have you considered doing a B2B strand for the exhibitors? So maybe having them come a day earlier, even beforehand, and then saying, well, we're going to talk to you today about how to market your business, stuff like that. What do you think?
The show traditionally runs over the late May bank holiday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Okay.
Trade and preview day on the Friday. Free attendance to trade visitors, but they have to be a proper waterway related business. So we'll vet them before we'll issue a free ticket. Plus up to 1,000 consumers who pay a premium. By being a quieter day, it means that exhibitors can get around and talk to one another as well. So if you've got 2 people on the stand normally, you only need one of you can go off and talk to other exhibitors whilst one looks after the stand. So yeah, I mean, we did try a couple of B2B sort of talks and so on, but actually there's still enough footfall that people were reluctant to leave the stands and come and see them. So
maybe it's not the role of the boat show. Maybe the boat show is a consumer event and that's working well for you, so why not? Right? It feels just like, for me, it feels like you've got 220 people all there, or 440, I guess, if there's 2 people on each stand, all doing some of the things, all trying to market their business to your audience.
There is something in that, because it is the one time of the year that the industry comes together. So by having that quieter day, it has enabled some of that to happen without, I think if we tried to do a pure B2B event, it wouldn't work. As it is, it's quite a conservative audience, small c conservative, and getting even the trade and preview day running was hard work. The first year it was, oh, what a terrible idea, why are you doing this? And then unfortunately we lost some momentum with COVID, but we've now in the 4th or 5th iteration, finally they've stopped complaining and we're getting, oh, this is a good idea, oh, we're getting quite a bit out of this.
5 years.
Why didn't you tell us about this before? We did. You didn't listen. So, yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting point in itself, right? That kind of, the longevity of an event and trying to hold your breath a little bit and be calm and patient with it and see what happens from it, and having that overall knowledge across everything. Great fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Nikki. I've enjoyed it, and I hope it's been useful.
Well, you can add podcaster under your belt now as well, can't you?
The Making Money from Magazines podcast is made by Crowdfinder Video with graphics by White Light Media.